Welcome back, everyone. I am the Depressed Eeyore, and this is Middara, Unintentional Malum, Act 1. We got a bunch of story bits to do, and there's going to be a lot of talking about some other stuff as well as certain mechanics. So get ready for a very long talky thing. But before we begin, I will say that I think it's a good thing that the melody fight does actually have ways where you can just break it. It is a more puzzly fight, and I do actually like how there's things where I don't mind there being things that are very strong in a board game, because those strong cards will usually, or strong mechanics or strong whatevers, is another way for players to adjust their own difficulty levels. That's why I was always kind of just bothered by a lot of the things about 1.2, where people were just like, we need to nerf all this stuff. I was like, why? Just, if people think it's too easy, they can just not use those disciplines and use other ones. It's the same thing for Arkham Horror. I generally don't play with Dr. Milan. He's one of the most powerful allies in that game. I just don't play. I don't use him. I just use other allies, and it lets me explore the game in new ways and adjust the difficulty in ways where I don't actually have to change the actual quote-unquote difficulty levels that the game has. So it's just like another lever to adjust things. So having ways to be like, okay, I can win the game if I have this combination, completely fair. And the game in that battle is still very doable fighting normally. I have my previous playthrough on 1.1, even with the rules mistakes, I kind of show a way you can do that. So I do already have a video where you fight this legit. So anyway, with all that said and done, let's dive in. The woman collapsed from the weight of her wounds, blood pooling around her. Her summons were gone, leaving her sounding desperate and surprised. Human flesh is so feeble, she muttered. She held out one arm in front of her, almost surgical in the way she inspected her many wounds. She shook as she pushed scraps of cloth against a deep gash in her belly, but it did little to stop the bleeding. Rook held an arm out, blocking Nightingale's path to the fallen woman. She isn't what she appears. That thing isn't human. There's nothing we can do for her. Nightingale glared at him, though she didn't try to force her way past. Rook, we can't just let her bleed to death. Rook didn't budge. Nightingale, do you know what this thing is? She shook her head, frowning. But no. She just passed him. The imitation of a woman cackled. Listen to the big one. He sounds like he knows. Use that time you have left for wisdom. She didn't even sound angry, only resigned. Rook ignored her. I wasn't sure at first, but I'm certain now. They call creatures like her living oblations. You make one deal too many, and eventually the only thing you have left to bargain with is yourself. Something crawls up inside your head and takes your body for itself. Whoever this was, she may have been dead for years, decades even. Is that true? Remy asked from his other side. Melody. The monster sounded suddenly afraid, gasping in pain. Her skin went white and her hands started shaking. Before I sold myself, my name was Melody. See? Nightingale searched forward, trying to duck under Rook's arm. Rook was too fast, lowering her arm to block her. No, Knight. She's not gone. You're still you, aren't you, Melody? The woman's head tilted violently to one side, swiveling to look up at Nightingale. Her mouth opened too wide, and she laughed. Of course I am. Who else would I be? We can't know. Rook stepped out of the way, though he glared even more intently. The creature inside her can make her body do whatever it wants. Even if this person is Melody, and we'd known her before, we can't be sure. Seek tapped impatiently on the stone floor with his weapon, getting the oblation's attention. Did you kill the informant upstairs? No, she hissed. Malik ordered me to protect the basement. He doesn't like snoopers. Her tone changed, suddenly pained and desperate and human again, or at least a shockingly good imitation of human. Please leave me be. I'll heal. If Malik doesn't learn I failed, I'll be safe. Just go. Rook felt the brief pressure on his soul, the faint magic Suri used to look through his eyes, then the momentary weakness as she borrowed some of his strength to manifest. Suri approached the fallen woman without fear, then turned her back to meet Rook's eyes. You must kill this creature. Quite. This doesn't concern you, Melody hissed, suddenly angry. She lurched towards Suri, but only made it a few inches before her horrific wounds forced her to stop. Suri's voice turned pleading. It has no business in this realm. It's a dangerous intruder from Makarla. Only if you kill the host can the great bounty pass judgment on this criminal. Any other action will allow it to stay hidden. Nightingale looked confused. Suri, what exactly is the Great Bounty? Suri swished in the air in frustration. Stupid fool, we don't toss our valuable names to be trampled and misused. Nightingale stepped back, frightened by the sudden energy. She nodded faintly, looking down bashfully. They are the self-appointed enforcers of dimensional boundaries, Suri continued. Where realms are close and compatible, they allow travel. When they are not, as with Middara and Arkala, their judgments are harsh. Kill her, and we will be rewarded. No, Zeke said. You're going to have to explain more than that. Rook was more sympathetic. If any of you paid attention in the assemblage, you would know she's telling the truth. Espers hail from realms outside of Middara. Many are allowed to be summoned, bound, or used in any way to the contract with their summoner permits. Certain realms are considered off-limits, and Arkala is one of the worst. It's probably the reason the Maluma doesn't manifest more often. I'd guess this creature is the same. Staying inside of another body allows it to hide from the Great Bounty. If we kill its host, it will be vulnerable. The Great Bounty will be alerted to its meddling in this world. Remy glared at the oblation in obvious confusion. Is it Suri from Arkala too? Melody laughed, but it turned into a coughing fit. It took her several seconds to finally recover, and blood trailed down her lips. Yes, just afraid that if you let me go, she'll be discovered next. Delicious hypocrisy. The creature smiled wickedly at Suri before saying the name. Suri is just as guilty. Suri snarled, exposing a pair of sharp teeth. Her eyes flashed with her fury. I am not the same. I use a relic to peer across the boundary. You steal the bodies and souls of humans and work with them until they crumble. Rook, we have to kill her. So, we can either kill Melody, because Suri knows best, or let her live and she might be useful. I have never actually killed Melody. I think if you do kill Melody, it can give you an out in another encounter that if you go a certain route and fail, you'll not be punished as badly. But other than that, I don't know if it actually does anything else. It may have some influence in Act 2 or Act 3. But to be honest, I'm kind of fine with just let her live and she might be useful. So it's not our decision to make, page 96. No. Nightingale walked past Rook, stopping inches away from Suri. She wasn't afraid of the fallen Melody lying in a pool of blood. She wasn't afraid of Rook's Esper. This great bounty thing might be powerful, but we don't give a damn about damn what their rules are. Nightingale pulled a roll of bandages out of her pack and tossed it down to Melody. Melody caught the bandages, staring down in disbelief. A second later, she hurried to work, binding her wounds as best as she could, staunching the blood with tight wraps. We won't kill a defenseless enemy, Nightingale said. Violet light flickered where Suri's lower body blurred into an indistinct blur. Do you feel the same, Rook? His voice shook the room. I do. Then I'll do it. Her violet light grew brighter, and a sudden breeze blasted away from her. This is why the bounty was formed in the first place. Humans are often too weak to protect themselves. You don't understand the erosion of our dimensional boundaries. Zeke cleared his throat. No, you won't. We decided not to kill her. You got outvoted. Suri's light faded, her whole body growing suddenly transparent. There was pain and frustration in her eyes as she looked up at Rook. She spun in the air with impossible speed, glowering down at Melody. You best keep your silence, intruder. Suri hovered just a few inches away from Melody. I know enough to damn you. She vanished like a candle left out in the wind. The Esper gave it good advice. Again the voice came, as it had on the streets of Ramstead. At least Nightingale didn't feel anything tugging at her body. A living oblation could mean our deaths and the death of your friends. If it reveals our presence, the bounty will not care that you were taken against your will. It will scour you for the sin of bad luck. Melody jerked sideways, suddenly looking directly at Nightingale. The writer lies to you, girl. My words would bring your death, but what of me? I could bear no witness without becoming a victim of the bounty. I have nothing to gain by revealing you. She laughed, and again the sound grated Nightingale. A trifecta of impossible lawbreakers we have here. Each host to each intruder as vulnerable to judgment as the others. Swords at each other's throats. No one can swing without damning themselves. Remy nodded knowingly. It's very practical. She can't turn you in without getting herself killed. Melody lurched to her feet, swaying unsteadily. Not even Malik will hear me sing again, she said. My debt is paid. The Black Hand can find a new bird. Get out of her way, Nightingale called. Rook, Zeke, and Remy all stepped back, giving Melody a clear path to the ladder. Thank you. Melody met Nightingale's eyes one last time, and again her voice sounded familiar. Look deeper. Malik only ever wanted me to guard what was worth guarding. She gestured into the gloom, at the faint outline of an open passage against the stone. By the time Nightingale looked back, she was already gone. You think we should? Zeke asked, cleaning his weapon along the side of a rolled-up bundle of cloth. Might be a trap. Nightingale sighed. We don't really have a choice. If we don't, I might end up like her. New visitor, 97. They didn't have to walk too far. They didn't have very far to walk. After 50 feet in the dark tunnel, they reached the end. Beyond was another stone room, though it had a lower ceiling and far less open space. Nightingale scanned the shelves and almost couldn't believe what she saw. The room didn't hold more coins, precious stones, or art. Instead, each cubby and shelf cut into the stone had a single number carved into it. On each shelf rested something completely unique. Nightingale looked between them with wonder, staring at this array of strange objects. She saw a sword made of multicolored metal, each layer glowing a different color. There was a length of rope coiled upon itself, hissing quietly like a living snake. Beside those was a little bag of marbles, which grew scorching hot 1 minute before encrusting the nook in ice the next. My God! Rook stopped in the doorway, scanning the room. He fumbled in a pocket and drawing out the black ledger. Yeah, that's what I thought. He turned it to face them. See, the numbers on the walls? They match the ones here. Damn impressive haul, Zeke muttered, nudging the bag of marbles with a cigarette. It gradually encrusted over with ice, snuffing the end out. He pulled his hand back before something worse could happen to him. Remy sighed. Damn, guys, I'm sorry. I think I dragged you into something awful. Nightingale touched Remy's back gently. Relax. It's not your fault. You didn't know this was down here. Remy nodded weakly. She looked as though she might start throwing things onto the floor. I thought maybe it was just information. It can't be, though. This has got to be stolen. My dad's a smuggler, and probably a thief, too. She lowered her voice to barely above a whisper. He put that creature here and told her to kill anyone who put his operation at risk. Nightingale reached out to comfort her again, but Remy pulled away. She spun, shoving past Rook toward the open door. No more putting up with this shit. Let's go get some answers. Remy, wait. Zeke pleaded. If he didn't tell you before, finding this place isn't going to change anything. Remy spun on her heels, glaring. If he was lying about this, what else didn't he tell me? Forget the smuggling. We still have to save Nightingale. I'm not going to stand around and do nothing while Nightingale ends up like Melody. If the Black Hand is involved, my dad and Grace aren't even making this thing official. It could take them months to find the killer. We're running out of leads, and Malik might be the last one. Nightingale looked to Rook for help, but found him engrossed in the ledger. She could see Melody's eyes in her mind, wide and desperate with panic, and she wondered whether she would look like that one day. I can help you find the murderer. The Maluma's voice was almost familiar, but it still made her shiver with disgust. Really? She thought back, more exhausted than angry at this point. The room, the shelves full of artifacts, and even her friends started to blur into the background. As they did, something else became clear in front of her. The Maluma looked much as she remembered from her nightmares, a cloud of sentient tar interspersed with flickering lights and organs. When it spoke, it never used the same mouth for more than a few words. All those eyes watched her, not seeming to see or care about anything else. I keep my bargains, human. Give me control for an hour, and I'll take you straight to the murderer. You can retrieve whatever leads were stolen and continue your search for Theodosia. You swear? She whispered. If I do this, I'll get my body back. Of course, its voice grated in a discordant choir of a dozen overlapping voices. You can have your body returned as soon as the deal is done. Nightingale. Rook was suddenly right in her face, so loud her concentration faltered. The horrific shape vanished from in front of her, and the room slammed back into focus. She blanked, dazed. What? You were muttering to yourself, he shivered. We found something. Rook looked up the ledger and pointing at one column. She read the word beside his finger. Hegemonics? What's that? Zeke grinned. Probably what the murderer was after. Rook says everything else in here got logged in and out methodically, except this. He stepped back, gesturing at a large, empty cubby. Whatever this was. What kind of artifact is it? Remy asked. What did a thief want so badly he blew up someone for it? Rook didn't get a chance to answer. From down the passage came a distant crash, followed by the sound of shattering glass. He tucked the ledger into a pocket, then drew a weapon. Together, they crept back the way they come. Nobody spoke. Nightingale, peering up through the wooden floorboards, was no exception. Someone she recognized moved above them. It was Aisling, the red-headed woman who had been screaming at Patrick in the middle of the night. She dashed through the house, pouring something onto the wood as she went by. She didn't stay long, spinning around every few seconds as she dumped the contents of several large jugs. She tossed them down near the window, shattering what was left onto the kitchen floor, then vanished out a window. "What is she doing?" Nightingale whispered. "Not sure," Zeke said, sniffing the air. "Smells like sulfur." His eyes went wide. "Oh, shit." Something bright orange exploded from up above them, accompanied by a sudden wave of heat. Zeke hurried to the ladder. She just lit the place up. He climbed rapidly, shoving on the hatch. It didn't budge. Rook, you want to help with this?" Smoke began billowing around them, above them, and the sound of the fire filled the room as more of the accelerant went up in flames. "She probably doesn't even know we're down here. We've got to get out of here." "Okay, calm down." Rook took Zeke's place at the top of the ladder, bracing his shoulders against the hatch. Something snapped and the trapdoor flipped open. Bright orange light shone in around him. "Pretty warm up here. Looks like the kitchen is still clear, but flames are getting close. Time to move." Nightingale was the last up the ladder, and the smoke was thick in the air as she made it into the kitchen. She coughed and squinted as black clouds stung at her eyes. The fire already blocked the front and back door. We're trapped," Rook spun desperately. Over the counter in the kitchen, Nightingale could see a window. She jumped onto the counter, pointing to her friends. "This way!" "Nightingale, be careful!" Rook called from behind, but Nightingale wasn't going to wait for him. She could feel the heat on her skin, and her lungs burned with every breath. Nightingale threw herself against the glass window. The wood splintered under her weight, and the glass shattered. Nightingale fell out onto the grass on the side of the house. She helped her friends out one at a time, covering her mouth as best as she could. They didn't make it more than a few steps before they dropped to the ground, breathing heavily. Zeke was the first to sit up. "Guys, I know we're all in bad shape, but Grace probably has guards on the way. I don't want to get blamed for this." "Me either." Nightingale coughed, scrambling to her feet. She helped Zeke and turned to leave. The group sat down a nearby alley and into the gloom. "I think we've got our next lead," Rook said. "Yeah," Nightingale agreed. "To Patrick's. I like something to drink, then some answers." "All right, back to Patrick's." Rook was the first through the old-fashioned bar doors, shoving them aside with such force that they snapped back against the wall. He ignored the confused stares of the patrons. His friends kept pace with ease, while none actually marched with weapons drawn. They all had them within reach. If Patrick was in league with the one who had just tried to murder them, they wouldn't let him get away. Rook found the inn's proprietors exactly where he'd been the day before, tinkering with a disassembled flintlock pistol. "Oh, hey." He looked up, his eyes flickered from Rook to the others. You guys go to a bonfire or something? You smell awful." He leaned forward, pointing at a little door next to the stairs. "We got hot water in the showers, you know. No need to stink up the whole place." Funny you should mention it." Remy hopped up onto the stool beside Rook, right in front of the disassembled pistol. She casually swept her hand across the table, sending the tools and delicate clockwork clattering to the floor behind the counter. "Hey!" Patrick raised his hands defensively. "You got something stuck up your ass already?" "She doesn't." Nightingale didn't sit, but she did poke up near the bar just beside Remy. Her arms and shoulders were covered in small cuts from the glass window, and her hair was pulled to one side. She kept her voice low, barely above a whisper. "A friend of yours tried to barbecue us. She's a little peeved." To his credit, Patrick didn't try to run, though one of his hands did briefly twitch. "I don't know what you could be talking about." Remy leaned across the bar towards Patrick, her wings wide behind her. "My father's information broker exploded today while we were investigating his house." "Your friend broke in with lantern oil," Rook finished for her. He kept his voice as low as the others, his eyes flicking up to the mirror to make sure there wasn't anyone sneaking up on them. Aisling lit the place up with us still inside. "Either you cooperate, or I'll see what my cousin Grace has to say about it." Zeke leaned casually against the bar as he spoke, exhaling a mouthful of smoke toward Patrick. Patrick's shoulders slumped. "I can't believe she actually did it." He slipped a flask out from his belt and tossed the whole thing back. "Look, I don't want to talk about this here." He pointed toward the kitchen, and back, where we won't be overheard. He led them away from the sound of drinking and song, away from the clinking glasses and happy voices. They followed Patrick through the kitchen, then through a doorway tucked against the back wall. Rook's eyes went wide as he took in the whole space. It looked like an entire blacksmith shop had been squeezed into less than 10 square feet. High windows were open along one wall, letting in a steady stream of cool night air. It was barely enough to stop him from sweating. From what with the unshielded coals of a burning forge, there was an anvil too, and a wheel and a sturdy workbench littered with tools. Half-forged weapons hung from hooks all around the ceiling, low enough that Rook almost put his eye out on an unfinished dagger. The others were all short enough that they weren't in danger, though Zeke eyed the weapons warily. Look, Patrick faced them again, hopping up onto his workbench. I'll answer your questions, just don't get the authorities. It would probably do more harm than good. We'll decide after you explain. Nightingale folded her arms, glowering at him. Was Isling the one who murdered the informant? Patrick sighed. I tried to talk her out of it. The Black Hand might be criminal, but they don't deserve what she was planning on doing to them. Was that what you were arguing about this morning? Nightingale pressed. No. I didn't think she actually was going to go through with it. I backed out. I thought that would be the end of it. Patrick lowered his voice to a horrified whisper. The guy exploded, huh? Sounds like she actually got her hands on the damn thing. Rook leaned closer to him, his tone artificially casual. She found the hegemonics, you mean? An artifact of spontaneous combustion? Patrick jerked, and there was no hiding the recognition in his eyes. You know about that. He shook his head. It's much worse. The hegemonics can attract exalted espers. Which are? Remy asked, annoyed. Pretend we don't know. Demigods, demons, worse. Stuff nobody should be messing with. Unless you're Zeke, apparently. I bet Isling used the hegemonics when she was caught trying to steal it. Your informant probably never felt a thing. Rook started to pace, biting his tongue as he thought. You and Isling were going to work together to steal this artifact. Why? Patrick didn't answer for a long time. He glanced at Remy, and words came out. Isling lost her dad, the Black Hand. Aren't murderers, Remy shouted at him. Spies, maybe, smugglers, but not assassins. My father wouldn't do that. Patrick paled. You don't know your father well, do you? You know what he's been doing in Middara in the last 5 decades? Remy opened her mouth to argue, then shut it again, defeated. Malik had only been her father for 3 years. She hadn't even known he existed before coming to Middara, but he loved her. That was impossible to fake. Patrick seemed satisfied. Look, the details aren't important right now. The important thing is Isling's dad was killed. She blames the Black Hand and Malik. As for me, well, he looked down away from Remy and Zeke. I want to say that it's because I'm sick of corruption, sick of back alley deals and troublemakers vanishing in the night. Really, I just care about her. I don't want to see her throw her life away over revenge. So, why did you steal the hegemonics? Rook repeated a little more insistently. I heard about it from a patron. You can probably guess. Someone drinks a little too much and they stop thinking about who might hear them. I was hoping that if we stole the hegemonics, we could bring it to Balthazar. The king would realize how dangerous the Black Hand had become and finally send a proper investigation. So you were trying to get my dad thrown in prison? It isn't just your father, Remy. The Black Hand are a disease spreading deeper and deeper into Alenia's aristocracy. They pay so well that nobody wants to be the one to stick their neck out and fight back. Every year they control more, and every year our laws matter a little less. Someone has to do something. Nightingale rested a hand on Remy's shoulder, stopping her from whatever violence she'd been contemplating. But you changed your mind. Why? Because I realized Isling couldn't just be happy with justice. She wanted revenge. She wanted to kill Malik, and I want the Black Hand stopped, but I don't want its members dead in the streets. Patrick rose again, scanning between them. I couldn't stop Isling. That means I've got to help you bring her in and get that artifact before the hegemonics gets used again. Really? Nightingale iced an eyebrow. You'll help us find her? Yeah, Patrick repeated, nodded back toward the kitchen. But not tonight. Isling isn't going to come easy. Get clean, get fed, get rested. We can find her in the morning. Rook stared, searching for deception in Patrick's eyes. After a few moments, he nodded, seeming satisfied. All right, but in the morning, you give us everything we need to find her. I want your word. He offered one hand expectantly. Patrick didn't hesitate, taking Rook's hand with a sturdy grip. On my life, my inn, and my secret stout recipe. He looked at Nightingale. You have glass in your hair. Nightingale ran a hand through her hair, sending bits of glass all over the countertop. This is bullshit, Remy scoffed. I'm not going to help you put my dad in prison. Remy turned on her heel and stormed out. Rook and Zeke shared a worried look, but Nightingale was faster. I'll talk to her. Thanks for the free food and beer, Patrick. Nightingale found her friends a few moments later. She already found an empty table and a pint of ale. At the rate she was drinking, she would need another soon. Hey. Nightingale pulled a chair over from a nearby table, spun it around, and sat backward in it. He's the only family I have left, Remy whispered. All of you have brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, or both parents. Malik is the only family I have. Nightingale only nodded solemnly, not willing to interrupt. I know he's not a good person, but he's good to me. Nightingale still didn't say anything. I mean, plenty of people hate Balthazar. He's not a good person. Nightingale raised a finger as the barmaid passed their table, catching the offered glass. A month before, she probably would have felt pressure to defend her family's honor, but she wasn't sure about Balthazar anymore. I'm sorry. This isn't about your dad. I just can't believe he's a murderer, Remy shook her head. I'll help Patrick capture Aisling, but I'm not going to help him throw my dad in prison. There was a long, painful silence. Nobody expects you to, Nightingale finally said. I don't know if Patrick's right. Aisling is the one we're investigating here, not Malik. And if we do find anything about him, you don't have to be part of it. I wouldn't want to hurt my family either. Remy reached across the table, took Nightingale's hand and squeezed. Silent tears streamed down her face and her hand shook. A few more seconds passed, and finally she wiped her eyes on the back of her sleeve. Thanks, Night. I know we're not supposed to be friends, but I'm glad we are. She grinned back. Me too. Now finish that ale. The next morning found them feeling much better, clean, rested, and full. They practically glowed as they made their way downstairs. There were no patrons waiting for them, just plates of hot cakes and Patrick himself. The man no longer looked just like just an innkeeper. He wore a belt of gear along with enough weapons to compete with any of them. I hope you're ready to give us information, Rook said when he'd finished his plate and all his friends' leftovers. We're in a hurry. I'll do you one better, Rook rose. Not Rook. Patrick rose, sliding a pistol into his holster. I'm coming with you. No offense, but you all don't really have a chance in hell of catching Aisling without me. That and... He nodded respectfully to Nightingale. Shayless would kill me if I let anything happen to you. Wait, what? Nightingale glared at him, bolting upright. You never said you knew my sister? Patrick shrugged. No. Well, we went to the Institute of Valenia together. We've been friends since we got here. Nightingale skipped over to an impressive display case of weapons marked for sale. So, since you're friends with my sister and since you're coming with us, does this mean we shop for free? No, ma'am, Patrick said, laughing, but you're welcome to buy as much as you like. I probably need the gold more than you do. And with that, we're in the next shopping train phase, which unfortunately still does not have a bounty. We do get a random common unique, random common unique again, so let's go ahead and pull those out. So there's the saber, the club, the tonfa, the leather dress, the nanorobes, the swallow, and I think that's everything. I think there's only 7. Just to compare. Yeah, I think there's only 7. There's 8 in this one because there's a promo card in there. But I'll check one more time because there's usually not any. Yeah, there's definitely no relics. So yeah. Alright, we're going to hit shuffle and take the top. The swallow. Okay, well, we're probably not going to buy that. It's exotic weapon, 2 teals, 2-handed. Exhaust after resolving an attack you made, you can make another melee attack against a different target. And then as a spend a stamina after resolving an attack where you defeat an opponent, you can end the current action and all abilities, move 3 spaces, then attack again. So this does give you some neat abilities where you can attack multiple times if you're fighting a lot of opponents. Though more often than not, you generally don't want to be just surrounded by a bunch of opponents, as I have shown, it does lead to bad things happening. Like, if you happen to be rolling really, really good, it can pan out. Or you could be remming and then just get killed by a bunch of cave sickles. And it's also just kind of, its weapon type, there's not really much going on with it. So yeah, I'm not going to bother buying this. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just set this over here with the Espelancer and not worry about it again. As for the side quest, we have Patrick's Lost Shotgun and a Curious Game. But before we do that, let's do some. We'll spend some XP. We have 5 XP for Remy and for Rook. So let's go ahead and grab False Idol for Remy, which will cost 5 XP because this is actually her. Oh, actually, no, she can't afford it. Never mind. Remy can't get it yet. It's going to cost her 6 XP because she already has a level 2. So unfortunately, she can't grab it yet. False Idol will be really nice for Remy. Not only will it get her another attack, but getting up to level 2 in Subterfuge will make Murder Circus give us another purple die to throw. But we'll need 1 experience to do that, which I'm pretty sure we can get with our side quest, but we'll worry about that in a bit. Rook, on the other hand, has only level 1s, so we can grab Summoning. Alright, let me put a break here. Okay, I'm about to talk a lot about Summoning, both the 1.1 version and 1.2 version. There's a lot to talk about because this was very much one of the most, I guess, contentious abilities in the game. And this is generally what was happening back when I was playing 1.1 and was a bit more active on the Discord. This is generally what the process was. You, and possibly your friends, decided to play Middara. Either you got your physical copy or you decided to play it on Tabletop Simulator, which is free, by the way. And you start playing, get to maybe the second story phase. Or not the second story phase, how do I word that? Yeah, actually, that's right. The second stop and train phase, and eventually get your 8th experience point. And somebody picks up Summoning. And then that person plays with Summoning, and everyone in that group goes, oh my god, this is the most overpowered thing immediately, or ever, and immediately goes to the Discord and types about how overpowered Summoning is. Pretty much this happens through Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, and that pretty much happened for just about everyone who played, including myself. Now, I didn't go to the Discord and complain about it, but I definitely recognized how strong Summoning was. In the early game, Summoning was something I saw as very, very strong in 1.1 when I first tried it out, and it was sort of a crutch for me. There were a lot of bosses where I felt that the only way to beat them was with Summoning. Mainly it was like fights where there was like a time limit or a specific way you have to kill them. I needed the extra bodies from Summoning to actually win those fights. But that was before I learned things about like Quick Blow and actual much stronger discipline combinations in this game. So in my experience, I was like, wow, this is really powerful. And while I didn't complain about Summoning itself, I definitely complained about a number of bosses where I was like, I felt like I had to have Summoning to win with this thing. And that was not me saying that Summoning was overpowered. That was me being like, these bosses are kind of crazy. Since I've gotten more experience with the game, in 1.1, I eventually recognized that Summoning is pretty good for about the first 3 chapters. And then it starts to fall off pretty hard. The way Summoning worked in 1.1, it was very different from what it is right now. Summoning in 1.1 was a flip effect, which means you flipped it, and after that you couldn't really do much with it. And you would summon an Esper up to a certain level. These Espers that the box came with originally had levels. Zulfikar was level 1, Elifie was 2, Femke and DM, the twin Savanis, are level 3, and Agares is level 4. And you can only summon something up to your equivalent level, which the levels were based off your highest level assemblage. So right out the gate, when you got Summoning, you could summon all the way up to level 2. So you can either summon Zulfikar or Elifie. Spoiler, but I don't think anyone ever summoned Zulfikar. Elifie was pretty good. Elifie was more of like a support character, but the big thing that stood out was the fact that they had scaling stats that scaled off the summoner. So, for example, if you had, like Zeke right now, who has like, 28 HP? 26 HP? And he got Summoning and summoned Elifie right now, Elifie would have 26 HP as well. And that essentially gave you another body that could act and do effects and maybe do things that are outside whatever kit you have, which is very useful. Like, for example, Elifie has the ability to put up barriers, also has the ability to purge effects and give dodge tokens, and can do gore shot. and her aura reduces armor. Like, she has a lot of cool stuff that she can do, including hurt herself to give herself reduce SP cost. The problem that summoning kind of eventually ran into was, as you can see in the bottom left there, they have the scaling symbols. Scaling symbols were not a thing in 1.1. So the symbols they had were whatever they had on their card. And those tend to be scaled pretty high for when you get the summons. So they generally did rather well in like chapter 2, chapter 3, but after that your weapons start to outscale them purely because the symbols become a lot more efficient on actual weapons than the summons themselves. I believe if anyone saw my previous playthrough, you probably saw I definitely made some rules mistakes on that playthrough, but towards the end I did show off like what I could do with summoning, and the amount of effort I put in did not compare to how little I had to do for just an ordinary character to just, do quick blow combinations or just blast away with Nightingale's ranged build. It was still useful, but it was definitely not like it's super overpowered type thing. And the fact that summoning was also a flip effect, if your summon happened to die for whatever reason, whether or not it was just from raw damage or falling off a cliff, that was it. That your summoning discipline and possibly any supplemental summon disciplines that you have specifically for summon would become essentially dead disciplines at that point. Also, whenever you did summoning in 1.1, you would get a number of summon tokens equal to the level of your highest level of assemblage. And the summon tokens were essentially you had two effects. It used to be whenever you summon like things that summon multiple characters, such as Femke and DM, you would actually have to spend your summon tokens to actually summon the extra characters. And that was the same thing for some of the promo cards that had multiple characters. And then the only other thing that summon tokens were used for back then it was essentially just like a free activation of a summon ability, which was kind of useful because it allowed you to do things with your summons on the summoner's turn rather than specifically the summon's turns. So that can give you a lot of flexibility. But it's changed quite a bit since then. Also back, I believe I've already mentioned this, but from the rules and stuff and the variants I mentioned, back in 1.1, damage dealt to summons didn't do anything to the summoner. So a lot of people that came to the Discord complained specifically about the summons being like just super tanky, which I felt was kind of the wrong thing to think about. In this game, tanking is by far the least useful thing you could be doing in this game. As you probably have seen, it's really all about DPS. You need to kill things before they do things, especially things that don't care about whether or not you dodge or not, such as frag ores. It's still useful, obviously. Having another body to take a hit for you is always a plus. There's definitely no denying that, but specifically doing summoning just to have someone to soak hits is generally not very useful because tanking is you're at the mercy of whatever the AI is and whatever the initiative track is. Because remember, if there are multiple targets to pick from, which is pretty often, it's based off the initiative track. And if your summon happens to be on the bottom of the initiative track, then the tanking doesn't really matter that much unless you position things in a certain way. So, in summary, 1.1 summoning was very strong in the early game, and then quickly fell off. And even if you took various disciplines that helped your summons get stronger, like there's one that boosts their defense, there's some that you can take some extra actions with them, it just didn't keep up. That being said, it still was very fun. It was a very fun ability, and there was a lot of flexibility on what your summons can do. Granted, there were some summons that are just not worthwhile. In most cases, you're going up the assemblage tree just to unlock Femke and DM, because the twin Savani are extremely strong, as I mentioned from the Melody fight. And then Agares is also really, really strong with his ability to push and pull people, so you can definitely do a lot of things like push people into pits. By the time you can get Agares in 1.1, there were a lot of encounters that had pits, so it had quite a bit going on there. Also, back in 1.1, a number of the large base summons, such as Agares, did not have squeeze, which meant if you were in a dungeon where it had a lot of narrow passageways, Agares literally couldn't function because he couldn't go anywhere. So yeah, that was 1.1. And as there was the talks about 1.2 and them trying to rebalance everything, there were so many people that like time and time again when I was actually looking at the Discord and talking to people, it was always the same thing. Like someone tried out the game, somebody picked up summoning, and then they saw how strong it was in like chapter 1, chapter 2, and then they would immediately go to the Discord and say, this is the most powerful thing in existence. It's way too overpowered. They need to nerf it, which again, I never understand that mindset. Like, if it's too powerful, just do something else. It's another lever of difficulty. You can choose not to use it. It's fine. I'll be like, my first question to that person was always the same thing. It was like, what chapter are you in? I was like, okay, it's going to fall off really hard. And I was like, eventually I was getting tired. I was like, I'm so tired of people saying that this is overpowered. Like, I've already said what 1.1's strongest disciplines were. It was quick blow and quick blow. There are some other builds that are very strong as well, but quick blow and quick blow were generally top tier. There was no questioning of the amount of extra attacks that you can get from quick blow, and a number of builds that are involved with it. And eventually, I don't know if it was an actual developer. It was a red name on the Discord, so it was definitely an admin. I don't know if the admins are developers or not on the Discord, and I don't want to try to put that title on someone that it wasn't. But eventually, they chimed in, and they're like, no, this is the most powerful thing. And at that point, I was like, if this is a developer saying that, then 1.2, they have no idea how to balance it. Because, like I said, summoning was not the strongest discipline. Hands down, it was not. Like, if you're concerned about tanking, like having an extra body that tank hits for you, doesn't even matter. Like, having an extra 30 HP summon tanking hits for you is not going to win you a battle. If you can't, tanking doesn't win you battles. It just makes it so you don't lose. And then 1.2 came out, and I was like, all right, what did you do with summoning? Now, obviously, the big thing was they did something about the tanking, which is anytime damage is dealt to the Esper, the summoner of that Esper will immediately take irreducible damage of equal. So if Elfie got hit for 10 damage, the summoner would take 10 damage. Now, there's some rules about that, where you can actually opt to immediately unsummon that summon so you don't take that damage, which is still useful. Even though you lose the summon, it did technically take a hit for you, which is better than nothing. There's also, they should change what summon tokens do. Now they don't do anything besides whatever abilities you have active for it, which in the case of summoning, the new 1.2 version, you can discard a summon token to reduce any non-irreducible damage dealt to a loyal Esper you control by 2. So essentially what you can do is if your LFE got hit for pretty hard, you can just pop these to reduce the damage and in turn reduce the damage you'll take. But probably the biggest thing that changed with summoning is it's now a per encounter ability, and you only get one summon token. So obviously summon tokens are abilities, so they do carry over, so you can kind of just accumulate them towards the boss fight. But what's more important is it used to be a flip. So it used to be you could only summon one thing, and a lot of times while people complained about the quote-unquote tanking, I made an effort to keep my summons alive. Because the moment that summon dies, my discipline's dead. It can't do anything else. Because it's a flip effect. It doesn't restore until you get a restore. But now it's a per encounter effect. And the rules for this is if you summon again and you already have an Esper, it gets unsummoned. And the other rule for summons is you cannot summon the same Esper in the same restore window. So for example, if you're going through multiple encounters, until you hit a restore, each of these characters can only be summoned one time. Also, they have dropped the levels. There's no levels for these, so chapter 1, get your 8 experience, get your level 2 summoning. You can summon any of these characters, including Femke and DM. So you can summon the twins to fight Whopper if you really want to, and I've done it, and it's very strong. You can also summon a Gary's, which can do all sorts of wacky things, because there's lots of pits and a lot of locations that you fight in Chapter 1 as well. Which is really nice. I do like the fact that you can access all the summons now. They've also been kind of rebalanced now. As I mentioned before, they have scaling icons now and scaling force effects. So it's a lot. You got a lot more options now. Because obviously, if you don't dive into assemblage, originally you could only have Zulfikar and Elfie was just unquestionably better than Zulfikar. Now there's actually reasons to summon these other characters, because some of these characters could end up dying, either from just damage or the fact that you chose to unsummon them to avoid getting yourself killed. But yeah, this is now a per encounter ability. I can summon multiple characters over and over again. I could carry one character all the way to the end if I feel they're really, really useful, like Elifie or the twins. So what I'm trying to say is 1.2's goal was to like rebalance things. They were saying throughout the Discord the entire time that summoning was the most overpowered thing ever. And besides the damage, the soul binding damage you're taking with your summon, they buffed it. They buffed it a lot. Like this is really, really strong. Like the summons scale now, so you don't, as long as you're getting better weapons, their symbols get better. Some of them will also have their own built-in symbols to stack on top of that. And you can summon multiple times now in a stream of encounters, which that alone is crazy. As for the damage you're taking, there is a variant rule where you can reset it back to the original rule where you don't take damage, which obviously makes it really, really strong, even stronger. But I've played it where I had the soul bind and I got hit, and I take the damage. As long as you have some way of recovering health, it's not really an issue. So as far as 1.2, I've voiced many complaints about 1.2, and I think there's probably two great sins that it's committed, which one of them I'm not going to really be able to talk about until Act 2 and 3 come out. But this one I think is the biggest one, where they spent the entire time talking about how overpowered summoning was, and they unquestionably made it stronger. They did give a little nerf, but they gave it a huge buff as well. And that buff is, I will happily take damage from my summons to have this ability to just be able to summon a lot of multiple times. This is also really, like I said, and that's a positive thing. Like, obviously making summoning more fun and accessible is completely fine. My complaint about it is the fact that the developers were constantly like listening to the whiners that said, this is the most overpowered thing ever, and we're going to nerf it, and they failed to nerf it. So it's just one of the situations where, like, what's the point of 1.2 if you're not going to actually do what you're saying you're going to do? So I apologize for rambling all about this, but this is kind of a sticking point to me. Like I said, there's a few things about 1.2 that really grind my gears, and this was kind of one of them. And it's honestly kind of minor. Like I said, this one doesn't bother me that much because honestly it made summoning better. So I'm like, all right, cool. This is also a lot better, not because you can summon any of these characters, but almost a lot of promo cards introduce new summons. As you can see here, there are technically 4 summons. You can summon Zulfikar, Elifie, the twins, which you summon both at the same time, or Agares. So there are 4 summons in the base box. If you get every single promo card, every single supplemental material, up to this point of me recording this, you get this many summons. So, not to be confused, some of these are multi-summons. So it's really just this bottom row here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 summons, promo summons you can summon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are multi-summons of some form or fashion, either summoning multiple bodies or introducing symbiosis, which we haven't really talked about. And a lot of these, if you're concerned about them being overpowered, they're more different than overpowered. Though I will point out in the case of, I think it's Psyche, Psyche technically has infinite healing, meaning that she can heal every round, and she can heal allies. So if you're worried about not having Font of Renewal anymore, Psyche is probably the closest thing to having a similar effect. It's definitely nowhere near as strong as the original Font of Renewal, but it is quote-unquote infinite healing over the course of rounds, that is. So yeah, this new rule for the per encounter thing means I can fully explore all of these different espers anytime I want. And like I said, despite the fact there's so many of them, they're all kind of just different. They provide things that otherwise aren't available to these characters. I did try to mess around with some of these characters. Like, for example, Lupercy here summons both Tixie and Toxie. That's 3 characters you're summoning. But back when when I did try them, it was back when they didn't have scaling icons, and unfortunately they just didn't do very well against the boss fight I was fighting in. So I definitely would like to explore these. Also, all of them, if you're probably wondering, they have lore on the back of them. I'm not going to read all of them. the way it's going to work is I will read the initial 5 that are here that you get from the core box. And then after that, if I happen to summon any of the promos, I will read their back of the cards then. So that way you're not going to see me just talk about this the entire time. That being said, I'm not going to go ahead and talk. I'm not going to talk about the summons right now because there's just too much to do. So I am going to put the summons with Rook, and we now have this fun little ability to play around with. And summoning is great. Like I said, I do like summoning. It's just a lot of fun. The few times I do get to introduce this to some of my friends, they always take summoning and they always have a blast with it. And since I also usually include the promo cards, I get to see them kind of dabble with a lot of these characters, and a lot of them have some really crazy mechanics. Some of them have these own little set cards that explain their abilities, like through the gates and all that stuff. So I'll hopefully be able to explore some of that. That's also part of the reason why we have these extra Act 2 and Act 3 status effects, because some of them do introduce them, like bleed and fire and smoke. So we'll get to mess around with all that. Anyway, for right now, though, there is one other thing I want to talk about, and we're going to do a side quest in this video, and which means we're going to be reading a bunch more story stuff. But it is not like any of the other side quests we've ever done, and I do have some stuff to say about that as well. So let me BRB. All right, let's dive into this. So what we're going to be doing, as soon as I figure out where the summon tokens are, yeah, I'll just throw these back in the bag. Okay, so we have Patrick's Lost Shotgun and a Curious Game. Usually we do go top to bottom, but for this, we're going to actually do a Curious Game first. So we go to page 113. We don't have time for this, Rook said. Finding Aisling is the only way we're going to get information we need about Theodosian. We're burning time. I know. Nightingale didn't actually slow down. She just about reached the doors to Patrick's end. The sound of angry shouts mixed freely with happier voices. Nightingale didn't know exactly what to expect. Maybe a barroom brawl. It won't take long. I just want to see what's going on. She pushed through the doors and shoving her way into the inn. Instead of violence, Nightingale found the space packed with patrons. At least 100 people gathered around tables in groups, rolling dice and shouting. What are they playing? Nightingale walked slowly between the tables. She couldn't make any sense of it. Whatever the game was, everyone was playing. She saw paupers, city guards, and even a few rich merchants hunched over the tables with their dice. 5 minutes, Patrick's assistant called. Her steady voice and mannerisms were at odds with her delicate features. Finish up. Nightingale bounced over to the woman. Patrick's employee was slouching on the bar with a pad of paper on her lap and a clock just beside her. Nightingale approached, trying to look as friendly as she could. Hey, you? Charlotte, she said, not looking away from the clock. Hey, Charlotte. Nightingale couldn't quite keep herself from rushing over her words. What's everyone playing? It looks fun. That got her to look up, completely dumbfounded. Abraxis, she said. You know, battle dice. Oh, Nightingale turned away blushing. Yeah, of course, that's my, favorite dice game. To her surprise, Rook had been following close behind her. He already had something in hand, a little bag of dice. Looks like the round is almost over. Want to try a night? Nightingale's eyebrows went up. You playing games? How did you find time to learn with all that studying? Remy poked up beside Rook, tugging something out of her satchel. Sure enough, it was her own set of dice. You don't? Nightingale looked around for support. Zeke? I've never heard of it either. My family probably wouldn't approve of something so crass. He sniffed, imitating a regal bow. Charlotte cleared her throat, interrupting his act. It's 5 gold for each of you, if you'd like me to add your names to the roster. 4 of you, so 20 total. She extended a hand in her direction, still watching the clock. So right now we have 10 gold. So we don't actually have 20 gold, so we're going to go to no. 2 broke to play. 114. Wait, what? Charlotte nearly fell off the bar. Her clipboard went tumbling, and she had to scoop it off the floor. She rose a moment later, looking between Zeke and Nightingale. You two are royalty, aren't you? You're telling me a lineage royal family sent their kinds out without cash to play a dice game? Patrick appeared from the crowd and hurried over. He spared them from answering, resting a gentle hand on Charlotte's shoulder. He spoke in a whisper, obviously not intending any of the other patrons to hear. The house can cover them, Charlotte. The house can cover them, Charlotte. We owe them. Charlotte rolled her eyes. Wow, okay, the buy-in is less than a magic tournament, but sure, we'll just cover it for royalty. She scratched each of their names down on the roster, then pointed at an empty table. Our noble kings and queens can play there. As Nightingale turned to leave, Charlotte piped up suddenly. No free drinks. That promotion is for paying customers only. So, and then we go to learning Abraxas battle dice. I'm pretty sure that the Magic tournament is in reference to Magic the Gathering, as you probably can buy into those tournaments, though I've never done so. Actually, no, I have done once. Learning about Abraxas battle dice. All right, everybody take a seat. Charlotte pulled a chair to one of the empty tables, sat on it the wrong way, and upended a large box of dice between them. I can't believe we're doing this, Zeke muttered, glowering at Rook. We could be out there killing real monsters, and we're going to play a game. What we're fighting might not be real, Remy said. But the stakes are. It's the thrill of battle without the danger, like the Bellicose arena. It's like going to the arena to cheer for your favorite team, but more accessible. Zeke shrugged, then folded his arms. Call me a skeptic, but I'll try it. Something about understanding the common people of Valenia, or however my mother would say it. Charlotte smacked the table loudly enough that Zeke jumped. That's enough. Shut up. I don't have all day. Get your dice, and we can go over the rules. So, I would, at this point, probably would have originally gone over a speech about how much I hate this minigame. But looking over the rules, and then looking at my old 1.1 rulebook, there's a factor of this game that I have actually never done and did not realize I could do. So I'm just going to hold my tongue and just play this and see what happens. Wrong one. So Abraxas battle dice. It's a minigame. The way you do it, you use custom dice, damage tokens, and SP tokens, which are stamina tokens. Each adventurer will get 4 dice. It's always going to be 2 of each of the color combos. So you get 2 whites and 2 purples, and then each tier up. This ensures that you have equal number of symbols amongst all players. Each player also starts with 10 Abraxas points and 5 Fate points. These are being tracked with damage tokens and SP tokens, respectively. The game takes place through a series of 5 rounds. The goal of each round is to match the symbols that you need to match as closely as possible. And at the end of each round, for every symbol you fail to match, you lose. You take a damage. And if you lose all your lose all your Abraxas points, you lose. And at the end of the 5 rounds, or if everyone gets defeated, you tally up who survived at the end, and how many people survived will decide the winner. Now, one of the complaints about Abraxas battle dice was the rewards kind of sucked, and they used to be just exclusive. So, for example, if you had 2 people win, you would only get the 2 people living a reward. I believe now it's cumulative, so that makes it slightly better. My biggest complaint about it originally was the game itself didn't have a lot to do, which may still be the case, but there's a lot of things there's a thing in this that actually would hopefully make it a little bit easier, possibly. So I'm just gonna play. We'll see what happens. But the way each of the rounds work is everyone rolls all 4 of their dice, and then they choose a dice to lock in. Generally, what you're trying to look for is symbols to match whatever you're doing. It's going to be based off the Abraxas card and then whatever additional rules there are. In this case, the first one we're going to be doing is the Pirate Winch, which is each round you draw a rare weapon and then add its symbols to the Pirate Winch, and just go from there. Anyway, while locking in, if you can choose to lock in more than 1 die, in which case it costs an additional fate point. They could spend a fate point to lock in an additional die. So if you want to, on round 1, if you happen to have the perfect roll, you could spend 3 fate points to just lock in everything at once, but then you'll only have 2 fate points for the rest of the rounds. So remember, you have 10 health, 5 fate tokens, and you have to survive 5 rounds. The 5 rounds is pretty much the toughest part. If it was 4 rounds, it would be a lot easier. Now, this is a thing I missed, and I actually pulled up my 1.1 book because I was like, did I miss this? And that is, you can actually choose to not lock in any dice you roll, but it will cost you a fate point, and essentially you skip that round. Now, there's still the other rules that still apply, which is at the if at any point someone has all 4 dice locked in, either because someone locked in extra ones or everyone, but someone chose not to. Once that happens, the next round is the last round, and all dice will have to be locked in at that point. So just something to be aware of. And then, like it was mentioned before, you compare the symbols at the end of that and subtract points. If you happen to get a perfect match, you actually gain a point. And then after that's done, that's the first round done, and you proceed to the second round. And then you do that until you do 5 rounds. So, with all that said and done, we're just going to do this. So, this is going to be Abraxis Battle Dice. My biggest issue with Abraxis Battle Dice is, like I said, there's just not much going on with it. Like, the narrative in Unintentional Malum Act 1 talks this game up so much, but the game itself is just so boring. It's just not very fun. And some people would be like, this is optional, but this is like, that's like saying that side quests are optional in this game, and spoiler, they're not really that optional. But also, the game is also not optional either, even if you wanted to skip all of them. If anyone's familiar with this game, with Act 1, you know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, you get to watch several more videos and eventually get there, assuming I don't die in the process. Also, I forgot to take Melody off the initiative track. Maybe she could play with us. Alright, so we'll get Remy over here, Rook over here, Knight over here, Zeke over here. Okay. And then we need to take this Abraxas card. So, Pirate Winch, if you look at the bottom there, there's 2 books and 2 shields, and then each round you draw a different rare weapon and add its symbols to the Pirate Winch. I'm just going to verify that I have all the weapons here. I do. Let's go. Shuffle. We're taking this one. Alright, so you do this here, and this is what you're looking at. So, the weapon that we drew is the Bloodtorst, which is 2 shields and 1 burst. So the target symbols we're looking for is 4 shields, 2 books, and a burst. All right. So with that said and done, let's get started. We're going to roll all of our dice. Good times had by all. Rook will lock in this 10. Zeke will lock in this orange. Nightingale will lock in this red, and Remy's going to lock in this purple. All right. So I'm not going to skip, and I'm not going to lock in anything additional right now. All right. Roll again. All right. This is why I don't like this game. The rolls are generally not that friendly. You don't have to get perfect, though it definitely helps. Alright, let's grab a blue. We'll grab a green, a teal, and a white. Remy is rolling like she usually does. Okay. Alright, at this point, I'm going to grab the red, and I'm going to spend a fate point to grab this green. Over here. Rook is going to go ahead and grab this gray, grab both these dice here. Over here, there's not really much you can do. I'm going to have both of them spend a point to not lock in anything. Alright, so we have 2 people that have already all 4 dice locked in, so this is going to be the last roll. Everything locks in at this point. Remy, this is your last chance. Well, better than nothing. Alright, let's tally things up. So remember, it's 2 books, 4 shields, and 1 burst. So here we have the 2 books, 2 shields, and she's missing 2 shields, 1 burst. She'll lose 3 health. Over here, we're missing a shield and a burst, so he'll take 2 damage. Over here, we're missing 1 shield, and over here, I think we have one book extra, so we'll take a damage. So that's round 1. We'll use a time token to represent that we've done 1 round, and then we Shuffle and take another one. Same result. All right, so same thing. One burst, 4 shields, and 2 books. And let's begin. So we got to do 4 more rounds of this and somehow survive. So here goes nothing. All right, Rook's got this going. I'm not going to lock in anything there. We'll definitely lock in the teal here. I'll lock in the white die here. Yeah, the thing to keep in mind, of course, is purple. One set of dice has more books than shields, and then otherwise. As for Nightingale, let's do the 7. As much as I like to get that burst. Okay. Let's go. That's risky, but we'll try it. All right, Rook's going to grab this 9 and spin at Abraxis point to grab this 4. And then over here, Zeke's going to opt to not grab anything for 1 point. Over here, we'll grab this. And over here, it's risky. I think I could opt to try to not get a point. But I think I'm just gonna expect to lose points here. So yeah, Zeke's not gonna grab one because he's just gonna pop a point to not grab one for this round. Alright, here goes. And then of course the Rook took an extra. Okay. Rook's good to go. I am taking that. Over here, we'll take the 9. Which unfortunately means I'm going to probably possibly hurt myself. Zeke is going to spend 2 points to grab everything. Which means he's going to end up taking 1 extra. He's going to take 1 damage. And then over here, we're just going to take this and hope for the best. I mean, the other option is we do this and hope for the best. Well, Remy, you are disappointing, but that's okay. All right, so this is last round. No matter what, you have to lock in everything. All right, well, that's going to hurt Remy a lot. Over here, we're going to get hurt pretty bad too. All right, we'll start with Rook. Rook has a perfect. He's going to gain a point back. Nightingale has 3 extra, so she's going to lose 3. Over here, we have 1 extra. And then over here, we're missing a book, 3. We're losing 5. Because Remy rolls like Remy. All right, that's 2 rounds. As you can see, some of our characters are already on their last legs. Shuffle. All right, this time around, it's books that are actually important. So 4 books, 2 shields, and 1 burst. There goes nothing. All right. We'll take the 8. will take the 4. Oops, sorry, that should have been a 7, I think. We'll take the 7 here. And for you, we have to get like a perfect with you somehow. And unfortunately, the white dice are not the answer for that. We're going to take the 3. All right. I'll take the 3 for Remy. Zeke will grab this. Rook will grab the 10. Remy or Nightingale will grab this. That's everybody. All right, good luck. So right now, okay, so locking in will not save me there. Okay. Zeke is going to spend an Abraxis point to get the remaining here. Over here, Nightingale is going to opt to not spend a point. Actually, yeah, it's super risky. She'll take the 6. All right. Over here with Rook. Remy's going to spend a point to not grab anything. And Rook will... If I go with what I have right now, he'll take 3. But he could also potentially take a lot more than 3. If I roll like max on both dice. So if I do this, you know what? We'll just grab 1. And we'll see how it goes. Alright, this is last round again, since Zeke has grabbed everything already. So, Remy, it's all up to you. Good luck. She almost lived. Almost. She's going to take 2 points and she is out. Okay, over here. Got the rolls I wanted. Alright, so Zeke is going to gain a HP. Because he has 4 books, 2 shields, and a burst. Over here, we have an extra shield and a missing a book, so loses 2 points. Over here, we have an extra shield and we're missing 2 books, so we take 3. Alright. So, we've done 3 rounds so far. You can also just check the cards here. So we still need to survive 2 more of this. Okay. This time around, this one's a little bit different. This one's going to be 3 shields, 2 books, and a burst. Obviously, Remy is out, so we're not going to worry about her anymore. And there's no going back for her. Just going to go ahead and delete these. Also, Zeke has no fate points left. All right, Rook will grab this. Nightingale will grab this. Actually, we'll grab this. Zeke will grab it too. Okay. Alright. Nightingale's grabbing this, and I'm spending 2 fate points to grab these. Zeke's going to grab this 7. And Rook is going to grab this 5. And we'll see how things look from there. There's a chance Rook may get hit pretty hard there. This will be last round because Nightingale already grabbed everything. Okay, Rook's going to get hit pretty hard. Zeke's going to lose 2 health. He's missing a shield and a burst. Nightingale's only missing a burst. And Rook is going to take 3 because he has 3 extra. Alright. That's 4 rounds. 1 round left. Alright, what's our last item? It's going to be the opposite. 3 books, 2 shields, and a burst. Alright, Zeke has no fate points left, and Nightingale and Rook are looking a little haggard at this point. Alright, what can we make happen here? Zeke will grab the 8. And unfortunately, he's kind of at the mercy on everything else. Nightingale will grab a 5. Rook will grab an 8. And then we'll shuffle again. Good luck, Zeke. Alright, well that's terrifying. We'll grab that 10. So we'll grab the 8. Grab this 8. So Nightingale could push the N here and then just put everyone else at the mercy of the dice. There's a good chance Rook would die if I do that. There's also a good well, there's not much I can do about Zeke. Zeke's made his bed at this point. So if I lock in everything at this point, we could be good to go. But it's risky. We'll just roll. We'll see what happens. Fate, you know. Okay. Rook's going to opt to spend a fate point to not draw anything. So I'm missing... I'll grab the 4. We'll grab the 4 here. And we'll see what happens. I guess I could lock in. Well, if I do that, then Rook will be forced to lock in. So we'll just see what happens. I think... Okay, yeah, we'll do this. Here goes. Alright. I think that's good enough. Let me check to make sure I didn't mess anything up with the locking in thing. So Adventure does not. They can spend a fate point to avoid that. Got it. Okay, I think that's correct. So, I'm going to spend a fate point to lock in both dice for Rook. We'll grab this, and we'll grab this. So let's see what that puts us at. Well, first I'm going to check to see if this will actually not kill Nightingale. So we need, what, $3? $3, a burst, and 2 shields. We have 3 shields and 4 bucks. Oh, no, that will kill. All right, I'm spending a fate point to not lock that in. But I'm fine with the other characters. Yeah, give me 1 moment. Okay, yeah, this that round we didn't have anyone that was fully locked in, so I spent the last my fate point, and we get to roll 1 more time. Essentially, as long as I get something lower than an 8, she'll survive. So good luck. She rolled higher. All right, so that is Nightingale out. Zeke will live. Zeke is going to take 2 extra damage. And Rook is going to take 1 extra damage. So we have 2 survivors. All right, you have been challenged by the Vile and Trixie Pirate Wench. Depending on how many adventures survive her saucy wiles, gain the following rewards. And I believe you get all the ones below it. I don't know if it's stated it, but that's how it is, because otherwise it becomes far less useful. So we get 4 random mundane common consumables and 25 gold. Yeah, if Nightingale had survived at the end, we could have gotten a common relic. I have never, in any of my games, have I ever gotten all 4. And this is the easiest one. So like I said, it is completely luck-based, which is my biggest issue with it. It's just, like, I understand this game has luck in it. That goes without saying. But it feels like there needs to be, like, more to do here. One of the suggestions I made way back in the day was to give each of these characters their own unique Abraxis ability, which would be kind of interesting to kind of see how they play and all that good stuff. But yeah, it's a bit rough. But we did get 20. Like I said, it's important to do these, because even when you pay into it, you almost always get more out of it, even if you only get 1 person out of it. Even if you only got 1 adventurer through. So we get 25 gold, bringing us up to 35. And in this first one, you can opt to not spend money at all, which is always good. And then we get 4 consumables. 1, 2, 3, and we got a pager. That alone makes it all worthwhile. So we made 25 gold. Well, we made 25 in gold, and then we made 28 in consumables. So definitely not a bad thing. I'm going to tag out the we'll do this for you. And then there we go. Down to 1 pack slot left. Mainly because I'm deciding to carry around extra relics now. Alright, so yeah, that was Abraxis. Abraxis battle dice here. And we're just going to go back to explore, and then we can go after Patrick's Lost Shotgun, which is 102. I don't think there's anything else I care to mess around with. We could do a little bit of shopping, but to be honest, I think we have everything I care to get right now. You know what? I will spend 35 gold. We're gonna go ahead and buy the second Doom Break. And I'm gonna give that to Nightingale. Her HP is gonna go down temporarily, because I am, of course, Gonna have the Doom break out first. And then we can always swap it when I need to. Alright, so with all that said and done, I'm gonna go ahead and call it here. Oh, actually, sorry, there's one more thing I guess I forgot to mention about Melody. Precise Strike also does irreducible damage, so that's another way you can bypass, though that is not super reliable. Anyway, I am the Depressed Dior. Actually, no, I still need to read stuff. I apologize. Patrick's Lost Shotgun, 102. Alright, after their third pass through the bazaar, Patrick put out an arm to get their attention. Since you guys seem to have a knack for finding things, I was wondering if maybe you'd be willing to do a job for me. They all stopped to listen, stepping out of the flow of traffic as they did. There's usually a reward involved, Nightingale said slyly. Unless you mean finding Aisling, but we're already working on that. No, I don't. But it would probably help us for that. See, it's my shotgun. Your shotgun? Zeke's eyebrows went up. You're joking. No, I'm serious. Patrick replaced his glasses, peering down the line of little shops and stalls. This isn't Earth anymore, kids. You know how many reliable firearms you can buy from vendors on Middara? He didn't wait for them to answer. Almost none. Anything more than a musket was lovingly crafted, either from original designs or based on something memorized on Earth. Middara doesn't have access to the same alloys or even machining tools. He trailed off. Look, I don't expect you guys to understand, but help me get it back and I'll pay you. Get it back from where? Zeke asked. The woods. The woods. Nightingale blinked with genuine curiosity. You lost a one-of-a-kind masterpiece in the woods. Patrick shook his head. Look, there was alcohol involved, and I made some bad calls. Are you going to help me or not? Seems fair, Zeke said. I wouldn't mind having a shotgun around if there's an artifact exploding people out there. Help even the odds. The trip ended up taking longer than Nightingale would have expected. Eventually, they came upon a secluded glade, and she dropped to a large outcropping to rest. How far out did you lose this thing? Probably another hour, though. I'd bet that we could do it quicker if we... He looked up toward the nearby underbrush. Something cracked and moved there. Hold up. Nightingale strained to listen. She could hear shattering stone grinding against something hard. Something was coming. Patrick lifted his pistol. We were too loud. Something noticed us. Don't worry. I'll support you guys. Nightingale rose, glaring at him. You're not fighting with us? Patrick shrugged. I don't have my shotgun. And with that, we go to Gavad in that ambush. Two large dogs eye you from either side of the path in front of you. A large tree blocks most of your view, preventing you from seeing deeper into the forest. Patrick makes it clear that by sticking to the road, the path to the shotgun should be easier. It doesn't mention a hidden entrance to the tunnels nearby that should lead to the same place, but it is a longer route. Alright, so we'll be doing Gavad in ambush next time, and we get to see Patrick in action. And, yeah. So, yeah, like I said, I didn't actually know about the not lock-in part for the Abraxis dice. It helps a little bit, but honestly, it's the same situation as what I deal with Remy every encounter now, which is, yeah, I roll more, but if I roll like shit, it doesn't matter. And, but at least there's that option. You definitely have to kind of plan around your other characters. Obviously, when you're playing this with other people, they each decide whether or not they want to lock in or not. And it can be pretty messy that way. I guess that's the other issue, is this one definitely feels like a game that should be just played one player, because your other players can probably be less than reliable and may even hinder you. But it is what it is. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and call it here. I am the Depressed Dior. This was Middara Unintentional Malum Act 1. I'll see you guys next time.